technology-wise?
No.
No? You want to have the stage up here?
Yeah.
All right, I'll step out the way. This is all you.
Awesome. What is that? Thank you, Mike, for inviting me.
Absolutely, man.
Super awesome. I didn't, coming to a group in South Lyon, I'm like, I didn't know how many people I would know, and then people walk in the room that I know or that I've been wanting to meet. So, and then more people that I didn't even know I wanted to meet, which is so awesome. So, who? Oh, nice. You have a picture of me. That's
Oh, yeah,
cool.
dude.
Hell yeah.
I know, I'm like, that's awesome. I'm like the stalker, man.
Questionable.
Stalk, yeah. Shit's on up here. There we go.
So,
Right, there we go.
who here has gotten an objection?
Oh, God, everybody.
You've never gotten an objection before?
What exactly mean?
I can't use you because, or somebody that's told you no.
Oh, yeah.
No? Yeah. What kind of objections do you normally get?
Too expensive.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Expensive, cost,
I have to think about
have
it.
to think about it. Ooh. That's
Talk
tough.
with my husband or wife.
Oh,
Husband, wife,
shop around.
shop around. Yep. What do you do?
So it depends on the situation. There's pretty much a certain number, and if, I try to do the best I can for them, but some customers I have to say, hey, maybe I'm just not the right guy, but hey, here's some other options, maybe you can call. We work around it, custom furniture.
So you dive in, see if you can fix the problem.
Try to send them off somewhere to make them happy,
Yeah.
at least, or say, hey, well, what if you do ABC, or I can walk you through part of the project. Normally, no one wants to do that, which is fine, but
Yep.
just try not to leave them saying, hey, you don't make enough money to afford me. I don't want to be disrespectful to anybody, so trying to leave it on a nice note.
Anything else? How do you guys? How do you
If you
typically
guys have
respond?
tips
I
on how to
usually-
do that, I'd appreciate it.
I usually validate the concern and then try to approach from a psychological aspect rather than a sales aspect.
Yeah.
It takes the sales out and makes you people again.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's usually what I do.
Smart.
That's really cool. So how do you do that? How do you get them to dive into that psychological aspect?
Oh, so I'll kind of act like, so I'll ask them, especially if commission is a concern or something to that effect, right? And I'll say, yeah, what price point are you really looking, what are your goals? What price points are you looking to reach, right? And so what are ways that you and I can make that happen? Because this is the way that I deliver value, right? So try to approach it that way, where the concerns are coming from, and then try to address those.
Was that natural for you?
Yeah.
Yeah? Good for you. And we noticed that when Krista gave her introduction, she said this is a very good year. And you're not talking to Mike, you're talking about real estate's down, right?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
There's a reason why. Krista's very practiced and this comes natural and she has the right way to do it. What typically happens is a couple of things. We go into defensive mode, right? We get really defensive about why our pricing is the way it is. We start explaining. We're telling them this is the value. Obviously, you're not seeing the value, and so we start really talking. You ever have somebody tell somebody no, and all of a sudden they're just like, they're telling you, right? It's like telemarketing. They're telling you that. And how often do you then buy from them when they're talking at you?
I shut down.
You shut down.
I shut
You're
down.
not even listening to the words
Get
they're
out.
saying anymore, right? The last thing people do is they're just caught completely off guard and they just goldfish, right? It's like no words coming out of my mouth. I don't know what to say. And so it's typically, and I've been in sales for over 25 years now and working with salespeople, I've seen this happen over and over again where it's like oh great, well if you need anything, let me know. If you need me at any time, I'll be here. Waiting by the phone. 'Cause I got nothing else going on. Right. And so what Krista's got that formula down, right? And so it's really, who wants to control their conversations like a Jedi? Right? The Jedi, in the movie the Star Wars, it's like, you will hand me the keys to this, right?
Yes.
Right? We want to communicate like a Jedi. Well, so I had this mentor, and he changed my life, and he talked about controlling conversations, and that sounds so being manipulative, right? Controlling conversations. But what he did was so genius, and what he taught me was so genius, and that, first off, we talked about when we tell, right? When we tell people things, they resist. When we give them that push, if you don't believe me, go on Facebook and start arguing with somebody and telling them their political views are wrong.
Oh, no way.
Do they say, oh my God, Krista, you're right. You're so right.
You're not.
No, they push back, right? And that's just our natural things. But what Krista's doing is she's getting them to assist in the situation. She's starting to ask them questions, right? She's starting to dive them into that conversation. Now, being in sales my whole career, I'm going to tell you that 99% of sales, 99% of our conversations, whether we're entrepreneurs or in sales professionals, no matter what we're doing, if we're trying to get business, 99% of the conversations, what kind of questions do you think we're asking? If we're asking questions, what kind of questions do you think we're asking? We're asking close-ended yes-no questions.
Yeah.
Do you, if you, can you, right? We're asking questions like that. And what is that getting us?
No.
It's getting us no, it's getting us yes or no, and then what do we do with that, right? Because at the end of the day, if we're down at the end and they're giving us the objection, if we don't know why they need it, either they don't need it or we just lost, right? I've worked with salespeople that will come up to me after they've had a conversation and they'll be like, how can I overcome that objection? So I'll start asking them questions about the person, not about what their sales presentation was. Tell me about them, why they need it. And they're like, oh, I don't know. What was your presentation? I did all the talking. If you did all the talking, you don't even know if they need it. How can you overcome the objection without trying to force that square peg in the round hole, right? So you want to know how to do it? Yeah. And you can take any open-ended or closed-ended question that you're asking right now, the if, the do you, the can you, those kind of questions. You can take what you want to tell them. It's a psychological piece that Krista's doing, right? You don't want to tell them, but what do you want to tell them? And turn that into a question. Make them come to the realization, right? And so you do that. Anybody ever take journalism class? The who, what, where, when, and how, right? Those are the compound questions. If you can add who, what, where, when, and how to any of your questions you're asking, it creates a dialogue, right? They start talking. And guess what? People like talking about themselves. I talk about being the difference. That's my whole platform because it doesn't take much to be different. Sales is so easy, we make it so freaking hard, right? Because we're forcing it. If we understand, if we can get them talking and we can understand, they talk themselves into it. All we gotta do is say, so when are you ready to do it?
Questions.
So I have a question on that.
Yep.
I'll get a lot of people like, hey, I want a white oak table. Well, white oak is roughly $16 a board foot depending on what you're getting.
Yep.
So I pretty much tell them, your budget's here or whatever. I'm like, well, to save on money, we can give you ash, which is kind of similar, hickory. Just depends on what they're doing. And they're always pretty much like, yes. But should I go into that? Like, do you need white oak? I don't ever ask them like, do you have to white oak? Does that make sense?
I love
Like,
the white oak.
sure.
That is such a
really,
beautiful
really
one. But have
expensive.
So-
you looked at the ash counters? They are a little less inexpensive and pretty similar.
Well, so what you want to do though is, and I'm not going to get into a lot of the how-tos, but I'll answer
Okay,
this
no
question.
problem.
You want to tap into their emotion. What does that white oak mean to you? What does it mean to have the white oak? And if they're like, it's just something that my friend said I should have. What's your budget like?
Right.
Now they're talking to you and they're saying they tell you that they don't have the white oak budget, and now you can position. All right, this is what I have a lot of clients do, right? And you position them into because
I
the
feel
white oak.
like most times, and I don't want to take up too much of your time, most of the time they say white oak, and then me not even knowing their budget, I just tell them, I'm like, right away, I'm like, yeah, we can do white oak, but I'll warn you, it's very expensive, and give them an alternative. Maybe I should just be quiet and hear their budget before I, like.
But if they tell you emotionally, like, oh my God, white oak means so much to me, my wife's been dreaming about this, budget doesn't matter.
Okay.
He's gonna hear from his wife constantly, every day, about how she wants that white oak when she has the ash in it, right?
Yeah.
She's gonna talk about every day why that white oak would have been better.
Karen has a white oak table.
Budget doesn't matter if the emotions are there.
Dear, it tasted better on the white oak.
Does everybody realize that,
Okay.
we will buy anything that we want, we have our mind set to?
Yeah.
It doesn't matter if we have the money.
Yeah.
I've sold things where people were debating on whether to pay their car payment and their mortgage or buy the cell phone, right? And they bought the cell phone
Right.
because they wanted it. I had a girlfriend that I dated in my early 20s that smoked cigarettes. She worked a telemarketing job and made like $3 an hour. She barely had enough money to pay her rent and eat. So she chose to smoke cigarettes instead of eat because she had an addiction. She wanted it. And I was like, this is crazy, right? This is insane. What are you doing? Right? But when we want something so bad, we will find ways to justify how we get it.
Yeah.
We will go put it on our credit cards. We'll take out a second mortgage. We'll do whatever it takes if the emotion's there. If the emotion isn't there, then pivot, right? Show them another way if the budget's not there, right?
Okay.
So it's the questions, the who, what, where, when, and how, and I can carry a whole entire conversation on telling. Tell me more about that. Ooh, Krista. You were telling me about that white ash. You know, tell me more about that. Not white ash, but the other one.
Same, there's
Okay,
white
same
ash
thing.
and white oak.
White oak was the expensive one. Tell me more about that, right? You can dig in. In my podcast, I'm listening to people. I never have anxiety going to a podcast when I have somebody else that's in my conversation, like across from me, and I'll have conversations with people I've never had conversations with, because when they're talking to me and something hits, I had this 17-year-old kid on that is a master. If you listen to this conversation,
It's a
this
great
guy was like,
podcast.
at 16 and a half, I had an epiphany that I need to change my business model. I need to stop texting and emailing people. I need to pick up the phone and call. This is amazing stuff. So anyways, he's talking to me and he's telling me these things, and I'm like, a few minutes ago you said this. Tell me more about that. You can dive in and you can create whole conversations. The whole entire point is people like talking about themselves. The biggest human need is to feel, to be desired, right? To feel seen, felt, and heard. And just a quick story, I have a friend that, a couple years ago, we did a podcast together. I went to her office and she was so excited because it was the first day in a long time she got to leave the house. She has an elderly mom that had Alzheimer's, and her mom would get out of the house and leave if they weren't watching her or her dad. So her and her dad were always at the house making sure mom didn't get out. Well, they hired this lady that came in and would take care of her mom, but they didn't want to leave the house because she would forget who they were, her husband and her daughter oftentimes. We don't want to leave her in the house with this lady that comes to the house and she doesn't know her. I'm like, so what changed? Why are you able to leave? She's like, it's the most beautiful thing I've ever seen in my life. She was like, this lady shows up every day and she's 5,000% committed to my mom. There's not another thing going on. She's like, me, I've got my business going. I've got things I've got to do. So my mom's telling me a story I know she's not even going to remember if I'm listening. And so even though I love my mom, I'm somewhere else. Even though my dad loves my mom, he's got other things going on and he's somewhere else. He's not there 100% of the time. This lady's there 100% of the time, listening to her stories, laughing at her jokes, asking her more questions. She was like, this lady, my mom doesn't even know this lady, but every time she comes in, she cries. Happy tears. Every time she comes in, she's just excited. She doesn't even know why. Right? Because she's there committed to her. If we can do that from business, if we can let our people know that we're there, and it's more than just saying, I'm here for you, because I had a conversation a couple years ago with somebody that was in financial planning that told me for the first 30 minutes why they were different, because they don't force their sales products, and they want to qualify, and they ask questions, and they really want to get to know people's life. And then the next 30 minutes spent my time selling me, and not asking me any questions about my life, other than what questions to understand how they could sell me, right? Listen to understand, don't listen to be able to tell somebody something. Listen to understand, all right? Second thing, so way of being is like the most important thing in the aspect, because you can ask the questions, but if it's apparent that you're asking those questions and so you can sell them, you got that commission breath and you're only asking questions that are leading to that sale, right? If you're thinking about a sale, if you're thinking about it, when I started my business, I taught this stuff. I had an organization that was millions of dollars in debt, and they were this close to filing for bankruptcy. They brought me in, and a long story short, and I helped develop this company. And over the course of 6 years, we became the most dominant company in our industry. And it was all on this stuff, right? Going back to way of being, I had a whole story here.
You said listen to understand though.
Yeah. So, I can't remember, but here's a good analogy to. When I started my business, going back to it, I started talking about the other thing. When I started my business, I had taught people this whole entire way of being the difference, the things I'm talking to you about right now. But when I started my business, I needed to make money. I'd given up my salary and my bonuses in my 6 figures that I was making, and now I'm making nothing if I don't sell something. And so did my mindset change? I was out teaching this stuff to people, right? I'm teaching all the stuff that I'm talking about right now, but I was going out in every conversation thinking like, I need to sell this person. I need to make money. I need to pay my bills. I need to be able to go and tell my wife that I'm doing something that's bringing in money before she tells me that I need to go back and get a job again, right? I have all these emotions going on inside me that I wasn't able to be with them and care about, really. I said I cared about them, but really, I was caring about me. It wasn't greedy from the sense of like I wanted harm or I was going to try to force them into something, but I was leaving. If I didn't sell them, I was leaving disappointed, and I bet they could see it, right? And I had this client that whenever somebody told him no, you could see it all over his face. And it was like, I'm like, you got to work on that shit.
Bad poker face.
Like, man, you just lost it even more. They're not even going to recommend you, right? Like, that's bad, right? If they know that all you're there for is for the sale, good luck, right?
Yeah.
It's changing that way of being. It's changing that way of being. How do you change the way of being? You're good at coming back and asking the questions. How many people ask open-ended questions when they're in their sales process? 100% of the time?
All day.
Good for you guys. You're ahead of like 99% of the people. And so I do an objection boot camp. Me and my partner Denise Roberts, we do this objection handling boot camp. We just did week 3. Mike came to this last one. We do them every Monday, 9 to 10:30 at Brighton Chamber of Commerce. And so we do this objection handling boot camp. We're 3 weeks in, and I can tell you that everybody that's come in, open-ended questions are not natural. You're used to asking those yes/no questions. And I've had every salesperson tell me, no, I ask open-ended questions. I just want you to put it into your awareness today. If you're out and you're having conversations, how much are you really asking those open-ended questions? And what it comes down to, like Alan Iverson said, practice. Practice, because we're talking about practice, right? Because it takes practice. I had to practice so much in order to get good at this. I would take people, and this is the definition of insanity. Why I'm so passionate about this is I became a sales leader. I started working with my salespeople to get better at making phone calls, better at overcoming objections. And I bring in groups of people on my team to get better. And I would ask them, what are your objections? Just like I asked you. And they would tell me the same 5 things that you guys shouted out. It's the same 5 objections that everybody gets. Those are the 5, right? And then you get other random ones like, I don't like you. And that's nothing you can do. But you get those same 5 objections, and so I'm like, great. How do you reply? What do you say? And they're like, have a great day, call me if you need me, all the typical stuff, right? And it's like, that's the definition of insanity, is to walk down the street and do the same thing over and over again and expect that different result.
Yeah.
You're just signing up. You know you're going to get these 5 objections. Why are we not putting any practice into how to overcome those objections? How does our service, what do we do? What do we want to tell them, right? What do we want to tell them? Put those into questions. When they give us that objection, who understands that these are surface level objections? These are garbage, right? When someone tells you they can't afford it, maybe they can't afford it, but most likely they're just telling you that because nobody else can overcome these things, right? 99% of the people are biting dust. And so once you get past that surface level objection, you're about an 80% chance of closing that deal because they don't know how to give you another objection. You know, they don't have a second level. You know, like, and you oftentimes when you're asking those questions, you can overcome all those objections, right? If you're being strategic about it and you know your objections, can you reverse engineer and ask questions in the sales process to where those 5 objections, they can't even tell them to you anymore.
Yeah.
When I work with my clients, one of the things, or when I'm working with somebody, I'm start working with somebody, one of the first things I ask them is like, when you get a sale, how much do you bring in? What does that mean to you, right? Because I know if you can get 4 sales or 2 sales, or maybe there's only 1 sale, you can pay for coaching, right? And what does it mean to you if you don't get that sale? I had somebody that told me, no, well, I'm gonna need to start in a couple months in June, right? That just told me she might be out of business, right? She told me how much a sale is worth, and then she told me in her conversation that she could be out of business in a few months if she doesn't start selling. And I'm like, great, what's gonna change from now to then?
Investing in yourself.
And there was silence on the phone. She didn't know. I was like, seriously, no. If you hang up now and we don't move forward, if you don't do anything different and you're just plugging away for the next 3 months and we hit June and I call you, how are you going to afford to pay for me then? What's going to change? Why do you want to delay that? Now you're going to be even broker, right? So she signed up. Because there's only a couple choices there, but I had to ask questions and make her realize it.
Yeah.
If I would have said, you're not going to change, I asked that question and paused, and she had to think about it. And she knew, right? And as soon as she knew, I knew, and it was game on. So practice. Where are you practicing at? That's the problem is There's no platform. There's no, if you're with your partner, you have a team, you can do that. I'm sure you have a whole team here and you guys can get together and do that. For entrepreneurs, there's really no platform to do that. And that's why I'm so excited. I mentioned the objection handling boot camp. I partnered up with another sales trainer named Denise Roberts. She's been in the game for 30 years and she had this objection handling boot camp platform from 2008 to 2013 that was just really successful. And then she shifted her business and did something different. But she reached out to me a few weeks ago, or a couple months ago now, and was like, hey, she's like, I have this idea. She had attended an objection thing that I did. And she's like, I have this idea. Would you want to partner? And I've been thinking, I've been ever since I was doing those camps with the team that I was telling you about, and bringing them in and doing phone calls and helping them overcome their objections and make better phone calls. I've been like, I love speaking and getting in front of a group. I love the entertainment aspect. I love this. But what hurts my soul is knowing that, really, what are you going to do with this? A couple of you may do something. You'll ask some questions. You'll shift it. If you're that overachiever, you'll go and you'll put some attention to it. But the main thing is you're getting some motivation and some energy. But when you leave here, life's gonna hit you in the face, right? Everybody has a plan until you punch in the mouth, like Mike Tyson, right? Everybody has a plan until you punch in the mouth. Life just goes back to normal here. What we're doing with the objection handling boot camp is providing a platform that we're teaching. We're training, we're showing you how to overcome these objections, and then the rest of the time is spent practicing in an environment with other entrepreneurs and sales professionals like yourself. So end this and wrap this up is we actually, if anybody wants to attend, we're doing these every Monday, 9 to 10:30. You can come to one for free. And then we have a system from there. But come to it for free, experience it. So far, people that are coming are seeing how much they can get better. We have a salesperson that's brand new. She'd never done sales before. She'd been and she was a nurse, and then she did admin work for the company that she's now doing sales with. In her first week after overcoming boot camp, she had 9 calls, booked 6 appointments, and she just gave us an update the other day that she is the top salesperson in her company right now.
Nice.
After 1. She's so new, she doesn't have a lot of bad habits, so she just went and she applied the practice right away, which is, sometimes you need more and more and more, which is why we set this platform up. But super awesome.
Signing up
It's
for
gonna be killer.
like, where do you go? Like, I'm definitely interested.
Yeah, so if
Right,
do you have everybody on
Brain
text?
change.
Yeah, so what we'll do when we're done, I'll make sure everyone's got it. We'll do an email blast. We'll have all your contact
Awesome.
info on it.
I have sorry.
I'll
I have a
just show you.
link that I'll send out. You can sign up for the boot camp and then just put your top objection.
Okay, sounds good.
Yeah.
That's awesome because I didn't even apply this to because I don't cold call because
Yeah.
I'm terrible at it.
Yeah.
So I just mainly referral based.
Yep.
But I was just thinking about the people who reach out on my listings and say, "Oh, how can I help you?" I'm just looking. I'm not good at that in those situations.
Yep.
So that's super helpful information.
Yeah.
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 Because they can
Absolutely.
turn it into a question.
You can
What
turn
do
it
you
into a
know?
question.
Right? Why don't I ask that?
Because it's not the objection, it's the emotion.
Right.
Our biggest fear is public humiliation.
Yeah.
We hate rejection. And so when somebody gives us a rejection, it's not the actual things they're saying, it's that emotion that we have. And our the emotion is high, our intelligence is low.
Yeah.
What the boot camp is giving is that opportunity to train and overcome those emotions. The Navy SEALs say that in times of chaos, we don't rise to the occasion, we fall back to our training. Right? And that's true in every experience I've had in my life. Right? And just quick story, I love playing basketball. Right? I played with a group of guys for 14 years down in Brighton, and they're like a group of guys like me, dads mostly, a lot of guys that play basketball with my son over the years, and so I felt really good about myself because I'm in pretty good shape and I could run around, and so I was feeling really good about myself. I love the game. I started playing with this other group of guys that are former college ball players, a couple pro guys, right? Some guys that have played high school ball for a long time, guys that are in shape, guys that are half my age. Some of these guys, I guarded a guy last night that's 20 years old. 20 years old, and this guy, 20 minutes in, was holding his shorts, and he told me this is the hardest 20 minutes he's ever had in his life.
Really?
I told the guy that brought him,
Did you go like this?
I think I broke your friend. And something mentally turns on inside me that makes me run even harder. The kid left. It was awesome. So anyways, that wasn't my point though. When I went there, do you think that I rose to the occasion, that all of a sudden I was just as good as everybody else, or do you think that I fell back to my level of training?
Fall back.
I fell back to where I was. That game was moving so fast. the ball was going off my hands. I'd have a wide open layup and I'd miss it. I'd get the ball and I'd like feel like I was the most uncoordinated person in the world. And then guys are yelling at me because they're so competitive and they're so good. They're yelling at me when I'm going down the court. Oh, I missed that shot. Hold on to the ball. Like, rebound it, 2 hands. Like, they're yelling at me. Now, we have a choice as entrepreneurs and business professionals, right? Just like I had a choice. I could quit. I could say, I'm going to go back to my safety net and play with these guys that I feel good against. I could even go and find a group that's even worse and feel really good about myself, right? I don't have to keep playing with these guys, but I wanted to get better. I wanted to play with those guys. I didn't want that excuse in my head that I'm not good enough, right? I'm 45 years old, and so what I did is I committed to working out 5 times a week, to getting into better shape, getting stronger. Me and my son, he's 16, and we play basketball intensive. We go to the gym, play on the court, we play outside. And then I put it into actual practice, playing in live games over and over and over again. And now I'm at the point where 20-year-old men grab onto their shorts and say, this is the hardest 20 minutes of my life, right?
Yep. Nice.
I'm like, for the last 5 weeks, I've been a major scorer against guys that play college ball. And I'm 45 years old.
That's awesome.
So, all I'm saying is the practice, when you want something, put in that practice. Put in the practice, and you'll rise to that occasion then.
Cool. All right, thank you.
Will you send an email with like all your information?
Absolutely. Absolutely.